All right, I'm Morgan Davis here with Overload. We're at the TuneCore Music Made Me Mixer at South by 2019, and I'm here with Shah.
What up, Morgan? Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Overload, what up?
So you're originally from Toronto, but now you're based out of Atlanta?
Born and raised in Toronto, and Atlanta's where I call home now.
What made you decide to make that shift? That's a pretty big difference there.
That's a good question. It was not intentional. Like, we all know in Toronto that Atlanta has got it. But coming from Toronto, it's sort of like you end up, if you grow out of Toronto, you go to New York or LA, those were the places I was going between. Went to Atlanta for what was supposed to be a show, and then there was just something there.
Yeah.
There was fans there, the industry knew who I was. There was something that effortlessly was stronger than anything I had anywhere else. So then that day turned into a week, turned into, oh, this is it. Like, this is the place that's going to do it. And then they did it for me, so.
Yeah, because I think for most people, when they think about rap in Toronto, before Drake, it was like you had Snow, you had PLS, you had
PLS. I don't know. PLS.
Chaos.
Oh, Chaos. Yeah.
So you had acts that were like maybe a little bit more on like the backpacker consciousness level. So you were more attracted to kind of like the trap sound that was going on in Atlanta.
Well, the conscious sound is just a factor. It's just like a result of Toronto and Canadian. It's just like, it's a very educated place.
Right.
It's just, like, there's never going to be a Donald Trump type leader of that country because just people are too educated. And then that does come out in the music, and I do understand what you mean in that can come across in a way that leads to things being less catchy. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, bars is still important for me, but just over the years, I've realized that if it sounds like you're preaching, that's just not good.
Yeah.
But it was Atlanta that taught me that. Because when you hear Atlanta, like, you have your classic, your hip-hop heads, your Joe Budden type set, mumble rap, whatever. And I was probably just subconsciously of that same mindset. But then when you get to Atlanta, you're like, oh, no. They are saying something. You might not understand it. And this is so catchy. So then thankfully, that just sort of, the diffusion just came over me. So it definitely wasn't a conscious decision, and it wasn't something that was previously existing.
Okay. So on that too, you've also really risen in the scene in Atlanta. Complex had mentioned you as one of the 3 like rising acts in trap. BuzzFeed had written about you. Tell me about how you got involved in that community there.
That's a good question. That's great. So the thing that allowed that, and probably this is the same sort of set of circumstances that led to me deciding, all right, this is the place, is that Atlanta's is a lot more open. So like Toronto, even though it's a smaller place than New York or LA, there's more money there. There's more money in the music industry. There's probably more influence and power in terms of the executive level music industry. But that shit is largely in the boardroom. In Atlanta, it's out in the open. So Atlanta, if you're a hustler and you want to grind and you want to make something happen, then it's there for the taking. In Atlanta, the first place where someone who's an outsider can make something get going is the DJs in the strip clubs. And anyone can go. You can just go to the strip club. Mm-hmm. You can just go to the DJ booth. There's a little bit of etiquette there, but anyone can do it. And so that is the difference. That's the thing that let it sort of get going. That's how I became sort of embraced by that world. Now, I will say that, like, being from Toronto, which is a whole different thing than Atlanta, that maybe a disadvantage I have is that I don't really have that community. Okay. I don't have that block behind me, and I'm not really in the streets like that I would develop like that, I'm going to have soldiers like that. Right. That would be normally the first wave. So
you don't have a Rick Ross type team doing that for you.
I don't have the original Rick Ross type team. Exactly. And I see it. And when you get to Atlanta, it's a very beautiful thing because, like, however you want to look at the way that people get their money, the support that's there, whether you look at it like support from the rapper who's making the dough and feeding a whole team, or the team that's like invested in their guy, it's a beautiful thing that I'd never seen before. Right. So, but that's a bit tougher for me. So it's sort of like that wave for me to start is a bit of a mix of like the streets and people who see something and believe in me, and they're like, all right, let's push you through.
Right. It also seems like we can't really talk about the Atlanta community right now without bringing up what's going on with 21 Savage, and heard that you've had some struggles with similar situation.
Yeah. So like, there's, I'm gonna be a little bit limited in what I get into, what I say, but we live in a world right now where it's like, when there's an earthquake or there's like some guy runs up into a place and starts shooting people up, and it happens in Las Vegas or it happens in Paris or it happens in London, then everyone puts their London and Paris and their flags up. But then you got China killing their Muslims, or you got bombs going off in whatever country that's not some familiar looking pale face, and then you don't get the same flags up there.
Right.
And it's the same thing here in this country, where if the victim of discrimination is not someone that's that, Hollywood poster boy, then you just don't care.
Yeah.
And that's what that was. So the excellent thing about the 21 situation was, I don't know if you felt it out. I don't know if it was felt like in Austin or if it was felt outside of Atlanta, but you really saw the community come together.
Oh yeah, no, that happened here for sure. You
seemed saw like that as well?
Yeah, because Austin's got like a pretty significant Islamic population here too, and it seemed like people were, and we've had a lot of immigration struggles here. ICE has targeted Austin specifically because our mayor has made us a sanctuary city.
Right.
So our governor, Greg Abbott, has purposely sent more ICE agents here just to cause mayhem and raid places, and they even did it during when we had election going on, where they were telling people, putting out false information that ICE was going to do raids at voting stations.
So then the sanctuary city status of Austin is the reason that I can come here.
Right.
But then when I got here, then someone said, well, not even in my head, it's like, well, this is still Texas.
Yeah, it is.
So, no offense, but
Oh, no.
but as a Canadian, it's like Texas sounds like George Bush.
Yeah.
Sounds not that different than Donald Trump.
Right.
Austin, I know to be dope from firsthand experience, and then so I just figured that politically it matches, because you couldn't have a city this dope if some people weren't behind it.
Oh yeah, no, it's kind of a little oasis in the middle of Texas here. So.
But so then what's the feel in Austin, like when something like that happens, or like what happened last year at South by when
Immigration stuff was going on.
So what happens in Austin in general, or like with the press? What's the
Well, it's always a struggle because it's a city that wants to be supportive and wants to help out, but it's had a lot of issues with gentrification. It's had a lot of issues with people being priced out. So there's a lot of talk. There's not necessarily a lot of action. And that was what we saw with the South by experience, was that South by itself had not communicated very well about what they were going to do to artists who were international that came through. And they had phrased it as though they were going to help ICE deport artists that didn't cooperate with being official versus unofficial.
So it was just a wording miscommunication?
Well, no. It was very much like South by was throwing its weight around. But a lot of people in Austin who might otherwise be like, yeah, I support immigrants, I support like fighting ICE, when it comes to South by, they all of a sudden are like, well, South by is important. We have to make sure that we don't anger them or any of that stuff. So
the city didn't stand up for the people that it might normally do.
It was a big mess. So.
Like, give me an example of someone who was like, well, we should just, South by brings in a lot of money, so my hands
There's
are
not
tied.
even like one example. It's like pretty much everybody. It's to give you an example of that, though, that I can talk about. I had written about this issue it used to be called Fusion, now it's called Splinter News, but I had written a piece on South by's like struggles with artists and that. And I'm like 99.9% certain I'm blacklisted by South by now as a result. So it's like a thing where if you speak ill of South by, the community can be very, very tough on that. So.
And then you think that's why now you have problems in Canada?
Oh, no. That's a different thing.
All right. Okay, got it. My man's got felonies or something, and we're not
No.
gonna get into that.
I got detained by Canadian border once because I was dating a woman in Canada, and I was going back and forth between Seattle and Vancouver, and I think that they thought that I was like up to something that I was not up to.
They were just hating. They just didn't want you to be getting Canadian girls. But
yeah.
Lay off my man, okay? Canada, I'm calling it. Yeah. Hands off my boy, okay?
So it worked out.
Good.
I just had to sign a paper saying I wouldn't come back to Canada for a year. So
for a year?
Yeah.
And then you had to prove, yeah, sure. So whatever. But yeah, that's.
But on a lighter note, after speaking ill of South by like that, what are some good things about South by? What are some things that you've enjoyed being here as an artist? This is your first time as an official act, correct?
Yeah. So I've been to Austin before, and I really love Austin. Like, you almost forget that there can be a city like other than New York that can have this much dope shit going on. And it's sort of like New York, you got a lot of dope shit going on, but then you got a lot of like other shit going on, right? There's finance and there's all sorts of things. But this is like, it just feels like everywhere you look, oh, there's art, there's people who are smiling. It's the vibe is people are spending money on things that let art flourish. So it's a very different thing. But yeah, I hadn't been, but the difference between this trip is that now as like, an official South by showcasing artist, there is access to this world that, to be honest with you, I didn't know that it existed. Like,
Right.
for example, me being someone who's like done everything with myself and my team, which basically means the people who believe in me and come through, like, we have Liz right here, we have Patrick right there, we have Jace over here, that come through and like, all right, let's just get him through. That's sort of the only support I would ever expect, and everything else every other person is sort of in the back of my head. It's like, it comes down to what can they get from me, right? And then you just sort of accept that, and you're like, all right, well, if what you can get from me still does me enough good that this encounter is worthwhile, let's go, right? And that's sort of been the difference of the last year of like the success is like, all right, well, those people see the money, and they're like, all right, well, I'll do the work, and then I'll keep my fair share of money. But what this is doing is that this shows you, I guess, the industry that, I don't know, I didn't know that it still existed, and I don't know that if I thought that it ever existed, which is people who are in powerful, influential positions, hear the music, they see who I am, they see how I look, whatever, they see whatever they see, and they're like, I believe in this guy.
Yeah, it's a lot of passion.
Passion, right. This guy's music is good, so let's get behind him.
Right.
I guess, especially as a rapper, it's like I just accept that, all right, well, the whole shit is just gimmicks.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you're like a legacy artist, if you want to do it new, it's like, well, like, what's your gimmick? And then the only alternative to that, without, help, is the long game.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, well, I'll just keep putting in the work. And I like nice shit. I don't like flying in Southwest.
Right.
But it's like, fuck, all right, well, we'll keep working hard for now, right? And you just accept it. But then now you see, wait a minute, hold on. Like, there's people who want to just make things easy for you so you can get there faster because they know that you deserve this. They know that music is better with, an artist like me over a gimmick artist. You know? So that is substance and talent, which, there's memes that go around that people don't care about talent, they care about popularity, which is for sure true. And my response to that is like, yeah, that's what it is. Don't hate. Like, just figure it out.
Yeah.
But then when you get here and so that's something that I South by deserves credit for assembling this thing where it's attracting the people who are in a position to do that,
Yeah. Well, so on that note, who are some artists that you're passionate about here? Like, who are you seeing coming up that you're really excited about?
I really love the Atlanta trap. I really love Atlanta trappers, Atlanta dope boys that put the pain in their music.
Okay.
So Lucci was the first. When I first got to Atlanta, Lucci was the first one. When I first got to Atlanta, I thought that all trap music was like, I didn't think that anyone was really in the streets.
Okay.
When you get to Atlanta, you're like, oh shit, this is all dope money. This is all real. It ain't like, like there's Toronto rappers that talk about shit that, it's some sort of, interpretation.
Yeah.
But no, this is literal. So then, I root for the underdog.
Right.
So I see people telling their real life story and being honest with their struggle and their pain and then making it sound good. That's what I love. So Lucci was the first one. Derez Deshawn was next. And those Lil Donald had a little hit that was actually about something. It was about not mistreating women.
Okay.
You don't deserve this. You don't deserve this. You could do better. So those three are three that I really have a lot of love for, and I'm rooting for them in Atlanta. Kendrick, of course, is Kendrick is the closest that we got to Pac right now.
Yeah.
That's what I would say, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for that. I think we'll wrap up on that. Where
For
can
sure.
people find you online?
Everything is Day of Shah. This is your boy Shah, S-H-A-H, Day of Shah, Instagram, all that. And then the new joint that we dropped purposely so that it can be right in the middle of South by is the joint Poison, the first new single of the year. So if y'all got a graphic editor,
Yeah, we'll put that on there.
they'll put it right there. And then maybe we'll go to a break and then you'll see Poison right now.
All right. Thanks so much for this.
Thanks, brother.
Say I change, fuck you mean. I'm as heartless as I ever fucking been. Give life thinking we wanna know what you mean.